You sit down at your desk, you open your laptop, you have a massive deadline in exactly 48 hours, you know exactly what you need to do. You have planned this moment all week, but instead, you open a new tab. You start watching a video about deep-sea creatures. You tell yourself it will only take 5 minutes. You just need a quick mental break. 3 hours later, you haven't done a single thing. You feel a heavy, sickening knot in your stomach. Your chest feels tight. You call yourself lazy. You call yourself undisciplined. You call yourself a failure. You promise that tomorrow will be different. You set 3 loud alarms for the morning, but tomorrow never actually comes. You just wake up and do the exact same thing. For roughly 20% of the modern population, this is daily life. In 1995, Dr. Timothy Pychyl at Carleton University began one of the longest-running investigations into why people delay their own goals. He had spent years assuming it was a time management problem. He was wrong. What he found instead changed how a generation of researchers understood human motivation. Procrastinators are not lazy. Lazy people don't care that they are delaying. They feel no discomfort sitting still. They are at peace with their inaction. Procrastinators are in agony. They desperately want to work. They just cannot make themselves start. After 2 decades of research, Pycyl's conclusion was precise. Procrastination is not a failure of time management. It is a failure of emotion regulation. You're not avoiding the task. You're avoiding the feeling the task creates. Think about the last time you delayed something significant. That specific low-level dread that settled in your chest. When you thought about opening the file, what you were running from wasn't the work. It was anxiety. It was the fear of failure. It was the specific discomfort of sitting with something hard. And your brain, faced with that discomfort, did exactly what it was built to do. It found you something better to feel. The prefrontal cortex sits directly behind your forehead. It handles long-term planning, abstract reasoning, the ability to work today for a reward that won't arrive for weeks. It is the newest part of your brain. Set against it is something much older, the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure buried deep in the brain. It evolved for one purpose: detect threats, pursue immediate reward. It does not process spreadsheets. It does not understand career goals. It understands danger and safety, pain and pleasure. Right now. Not next month, not next year. Right now. When the task in front of you triggers discomfort, the amygdala doesn't wait for a logical argument. It registers the signal, and it moves you away from it. The prefrontal cortex can construct a case for why you should stay at your desk. The amygdala doesn't have to listen. It is faster. And in most people, when the pressure is high enough, it wins. In 2012, Dr. Piers Steel at the University of Calgary published something unusual, a meta-analysis of over 800 studies on human motivation. 800. His conclusion was mathematical. He called it temporal motivation theory. Your drive to begin a task is determined by 4 variables: how confident you are that you can succeed, how much you value the reward, how impulsive you are by nature, and how far away the reward is. That last variable matters more than any other. The further away the reward is, the less your brain values it, not intellectually. Neurologically, this is called temporal discounting. It is not a character flaw. It is documented in nearly every animal species ever studied. A reward available today is worth more to your brain than a larger reward next month. Your brain knows this even when your rational mind objects. Apply it to something ordinary. The reward for finishing your report is a promotion. That promotion is 6 months away. The reward for opening a new tab is a small, clean hit of pleasure. That pleasure is available in the next 10 seconds. Your brain runs the calculation in milliseconds. The tab wins. Not because you're weak, because you're running hardware that was never designed for a 6-month delay. For almost all of human history, the gap between action and reward was extremely short. You hunted, you ate, you built shelter, you stayed warm, you ran from the predator. You survived. The brain that developed under those conditions was efficient, precise, perfectly calibrated for a world where the reward was immediate and the threat was real. That brain is still inside you, completely intact, running the same calculations. It ran on the African savanna 200,000 years ago. The difference is the world it woke up in. Modern life does not ask you to hunt. It asks you to file a report whose impact won't be visible for 3 months. It asks you to study for an exam that determines a career that starts in 4 years. It asks you to build something that might never work. For a brain wired for the immediate, this is not a task. It is a threat with no clear edge. And when the brain detects a threat with no clear edge, it does what it has always done. It retreats. Researchers call this evolutionary mismatch. The hardware is ancient. The demands being placed on it are new, and the gap between the two produces a predictable outcome every single time. But here is the finding that almost no one discusses. You are solving for pain. In 2010, Dr. Sirois at the University of Sheffield studied the physical health of chronic procrastinators. She measured stress levels, immune function, rates of sleep disruption. Her expectation was that they suffered because of unfinished work piling up. Her actual finding was more specific than that, and considerably darker. Chronic procrastinators did not suffer primarily from the stress of incomplete tasks. They suffered from the stress of guilt. Every hour spent avoiding work, while knowing you are avoiding it, floods the body with cortisol. The attempt to escape discomfort was generating more discomfort than the original task would have. The escape route was the trap. This was the cycle Sirois documented. You feel bad about the task, you avoid it to feel better. You feel worse because you avoided it, so you avoid it again to feel better, and the loop keeps tightening. No planner addresses this loop. No productivity framework was designed to, because almost no one had correctly identified what the loop was made of. In 2010, researchers at Carleton University ran a study most productivity experts would have dismissed. They took students who had procrastinated on a previous exam. They told half of them to forgive themselves for it, not to analyze what went wrong, not to build a better system, just to let it go. They told the other half to sit with the guilt, hold themselves accountable, feel the weight of what they had done. Then both groups were given a new exam to prepare for. The students who had forgiven themselves procrastinated significantly less, not slightly less, significantly less. The mechanism that drove avoidance, the negative emotional charge attached to the task, had been partially neutralized. With less dread, there was less to escape. With less to escape, starting became possible. This finding directly contradicted the most widely held assumption about self-improvement. We have been taught that the path to better performance runs through harsher self-judgment. Be harder on yourself, punish failure more severely. Hold yourself accountable until it hurts. The evidence pointed in the opposite direction. Harsh self-criticism does not motivate. It activates the same threat response systems that drive avoidance in the first place. The next task feels more frightening, not less. Self-compassion does the opposite. Not self-indulgence, not lowering your standards. A specific act of treating your own failures with the patience you would extend to someone you love. It reduces the emotional charge around the task. And when the charge is reduced, the brain's threat systems have less to react to. The researchers who documented this were not proposing a philosophy. They were recording what the data showed. We have spent decades treating procrastination as a moral failure. We built apps to track wasted time. We bought planners. We told ourselves we just needed more discipline. The research says something different. Procrastination is a predictable result of a brain encountering a world it was not built for, and doing what it has always done when it detects a threat. It retreats, it seeks safety, it chooses the discomfort it knows over the discomfort it doesn't. The scientists who have spent their careers studying this are not pessimists. Pychyl, Steel, and Sirois do not argue that the condition is permanent. What they argue is that the treatment has to match the actual diagnosis. You cannot schedule your way out of an emotional response. You cannot shame your way past a fear. We have known this for over 2 decades. The studies are published. The data is clear. And yet the apps keep selling. The planners keep shipping. The same advice keeps circulating. Work harder, want it more. Be better. Your brain hears that and does exactly what it was built to do. It identifies a threat. It moves you away from it. And tomorrow morning, when you sit down at your desk with the same deadline and the same intentions, it will do it again. It has been doing it for 200,000 years. It is very good at it. And it has absolutely no plans to stop.